I was at a Krishnamurti meeting, and broadly speaking, they follow the Buddhist view that, there is no God, and the person is a non-concept, just not rational. We are the focus of forces and conditions in the Buddhist view. That's the nearest we get to a person. We're not therefore controlling our destiny. Now this is consistent with the experience of uncertainty in the world. With uncertainty, it's very difficult to steer in the right direction because random influences cut across and the outcome is not what would be in a certainty situation from the actions you do. The broader problem is that there is not a meaning to life. Or at least not in the present circumstance. There is, probably depending which branch of Buddhism, a belief that by the cycles of reincarnation you do eventually either stumble across enlightenment. In a way, the Zen Buddhism is like this. It's possible to achieve enlightenment at a sort of miraculous stroke of understanding that hits you, possibly from meditation on in a particular way that stops the mind, and the mind, when blank, realizes either the blankness itself is an astonishing freedom and enlightenment, or that enlightenment is able to come at such a time. Those two possibilities may not be mutually exclusive either. But in general, from this stylized point of view, life has no meaning as it is, and no God, and therefore no assurance. And really that means depression, dukkha. Dukkha is discomfort, dis-ease, dissatisfaction. Even good things become tedious after much repetition. One would say it's an extreme negativity state of not positive life and joy, but dukkha. Suffering, but a broader definition than pain, more a dissatisfaction, which is not a happiness, of course, not a joy. You would wonder, well, what's the attraction of such a belief system? And well, the Buddhist mind is not owning the sovereignty in the situation, you see. You are simply the focus of forces and conditions in a world that, well, really is not personal. It just is. So the situation psychologically is extremely repellent, unacceptable. Hence there's tremendous need to press towards enlightenment, keep the Dharma, follow the practices, focus the mind, control the mind in particular. Don't think about the future or the past. Prepare for death. I mean, there are things like, one particular view is we should think about death each day so that we're prepared for it when it comes. And we go through the process of death in the way the Buddhist understands it, in great consciousness and awareness, and strictly controlling the mind. And you've practiced during a lifetime prepared for this. But it's not a happy situation. But of course, in a sense, it's saying you can't change the situation. You can only accept it. And complete acceptance without pressing for any desire for alternative will be the answer, will be the best way to go. You will have in some sense nullified the impersonal situation that you're in. I can feel a sort of a negativity and depression just talking about such a view. And you may say, no, you got the Buddhist view slightly wrong, Marshall, or majorly wrong. I don't think so. I've been in a teaching experience of a Buddhist monk who I take to be extremely competent in his field of expertise. Been in that experience in a weekly meeting, teaching situation and practice for probably 10, 12 more years. I think I've got it broadly speaking right. And it's very unsatisfactory compared to what is also available in living, which is the religious view, where you choose beliefs that bring you peace of mind, purpose, meaning to life in particular, hope, and by which we mean the expectation of not only a good future, but in some sense a good present, because God is with you. And well, is benevolent. In the Jesus story case, is actually loving, of course. You've come to tell people that God is their heavenly dad, created them and loves them, and is well able to bring them and keep them in eternal peace, joy and happiness, and indeed life eternal, life abundant, life eternal. And that practicing such belief, A, is possible, and B, brings joy, peace, hope, love, and vitality of life, fullness of life, life eternal indeed. So it's a case in such alternative as choosing beliefs that do this. And of course the Christian way, for instance, is to live according to the example of Jesus, or understanding the teaching of Jesus. Those two things are slightly different. To understand the teaching is a sort of cerebral approach, a bit like the Buddhist Dharma, where if you have the right understanding, then there is hope and, things are satisfying. Whereas, well, in a sense, similar to the Buddhism, if you follow a certain practice, Dharma teaching that involves, and not things like breathing and meditation exercises, although prayer is close to meditation. It's a focusing your mind on what you're valuing, God in this case, a heavenly God, powerful, and someone who has things right, and that rightness brings fullness of life and assurance and a good judgment outcome in some final judgment situation perhaps, or ongoing judgment situation where your difficulties are a consequence of your willfully not keeping the law, the principles. Heavy in Christianity is the concept of blame. Less so in Hinduism, where it's a consequence of wrong action. In Buddhism, it was your problem is the consequence of misunderstanding, wrong understanding of what you are and what your situation is. And in particular your attachment to desires. Religion has this generally, of course, wrong desires, which are put right by understanding God's teaching in some way, possibly through Guru in the Hindu case, or pretty close to it through Jesus in the Christian case. But the practice, I think, that Jesus really gives in the story is something that's not quite missed by Christian religion, but not majorly taught. And that is that if you think on all that's good and lovely, then, and by expressing your thankfulness to such too, then this positivity builds a great gratitude. And gratitude, of course, inspires you to believe accordingly and trust and hope. You find you have belief. It's not that you're struggling to understand and make belief come about, which is the usual preoccupation of Christian religion, Bible studies and teaching from the priest and so on, who is supposed to know the way. In some ways, he doesn't. Usually, the way is not emphasized as from the story, the way, which is that the meditation on the good, the realizing of the good of God, gives you meaning, hope, peace. You're filled with thankfulness. of his help and glory and protection and kindness. And you're sensitive to it if you are positive in 21st century jargon, if you are thanking God in old-fashioned, encompassing view of the way. Thankfulness to God, praise of his goodness, meditation therefore on his goodness, the goodness of God, and his kindness to you, fills you with hope and peace and joy and gratitude therefore. And this gratitude drives you in the right direction into his presence, glorifying him and being glorified by the assurance of him in you. So I think Christian religion has not so much totally missed the point of the Christian story, but it's got lost in a conviction of what the right head knowledge is, rather than the right experience of appreciating all the goodness of God, which transforms you. Just appreciating that goodness. You feel hopeful, you feel the peace, you feel joy. You are filled with gratitude. And gratitude means that you're not slavishly obeying an authoritarian God, but devoted to loving a God who is so kind and provides so much, that you spontaneously follow the principles of life as indeed in the teaching, don't kill, don't steal, basically be kind and loving and creative, and you're inspired to do that rather than constrained to do that by law and imposition and threats of hell, of course, from final judgment if you don't do such. 17 minutes. I think I'll stop it there. Thank you, Heavenly Dad.